Police arrest a man suspected of killing 4 people and injuring another in Taiwan's worst mass shooting in more than 2 decades. A worrying trend on Taipei's metro. Cases of covert photography targeting women are on the rise. Also ahead.
I'm Louise Watt at a science and engineering university in northern Taiwan, where more and more students are coming from Asia. That's the result of a broader government push known as the new Southbound Policy.
Plus, why summer is turning out to be a troubling time for Xiaoliuqiu's treasured sea turtles. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Divya Gopalan. It is good to have your company. We start with news right here in Taiwan, where police have arrested a suspect believed to be behind Taiwan's deadliest mass shooting in more than 20 years. 4 people were killed in the attack in Nantou and 1 seriously injured. John Van Triest has this report.
Gunshots rang out Thursday evening around the offices of Kangjian Biotech Company in Taiwan's central Nantou County. Face covered, the shooter first went to a nearby residence where he forced the company owner's brother and a department head into a bathroom. He handcuffed and then shot them point blank. The suspect then went into the company's production area where employees were getting off work. He forced the workers into another bathroom. He then went through the building, finding and shooting the company's owner, his daughter, and a company director. Only the 81-year-old owner survived. He is in a hospital being treated for a gunshot wound to the head and COVID, which he since tested positive for. Police say the suspect was a former employee who was arrested in 2014 for attacking one of the managers with an iron club. Several of the victims had testified in the subsequent trial, in which he was found not guilty of attempted murder. Taiwan's police chief himself is on the scene to lead the investigation. What's clear is that this case is unusual, the deadliest shooting since 1996, in a country where mass gun violence is rare. James Rayner and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
Upskirting, have you heard that term before? Well, that's when someone secretly takes a photo or video under someone's clothing. And it is on the rise on Taipei's metro system. There have been 29 reported cases in the first half of this year, and that's compared to just 20 in all of 2021. Rick Loward has more.
In this CCTV footage of the Taipei metro, a female commuter realizes a man is trying to film up her skirt. She accosts him, a struggle ensues, but he escapes.
该犯嫌情急之下竟脱下外套直接冲出闸门逃逸，所以我们是过2个星期才查获这个男子。
The incident was just one of a rising number now taking place on the capital's public transport system. Taipei Metro says there have been 49 incidents of privacy invasion in the last 1.5 years, with 12 of those in the last 2 months. They now make up 20% of all criminal cases on the subway network, and police have issued a warning.
犯罪手法多是利用手扶梯高低差偷拍女性群体风光，遇到偷拍或性骚扰行为，可立即大声呼喊，或请站务人员求助。 亦可拨打110报案电话。
This week, a Taipei court sentenced a man to 6 months in jail after he was convicted for such an incident. There's been a push to tackle the harassment faced by women after a lawmaker revealed she had been abused by her partner. And a recent government report revealed the extent of gender-based violence in the country. Taiwan enacted its first anti-stalking law last month. But these escalating cases on Taiwan's busiest public transport system shows more needs to be done to protect women from abuse. Alex Chen and Rick Glauert for TaiwanPlus.
Well, there's some good news for travelers. Taiwan is removing the need for some people to show a negative PCR test before traveling to the country. Now, this new rule applies to citizens, foreign residents, and transiting passengers. People entering the country will still have to take a test once they arrive, and they'll still need to quarantine for 3 days. Now, some 2,000 people, along with 200 fire trucks and helicopters, have taken part in a monster civil defense drill in New Taipei City. The annual drills are designed to prepare Taiwan for an emergency, but this year's event went a step further and included simulated missile attacks on buildings and transportation. Bing Wang has this report.
All hands on deck. Explosions and air sirens went off in a Ming'an exercise in New Taipei City. Taiwan's most populous city, with 4 million people, held an all-out mobilization civil defense exercise to test out its defense preparedness.
我们很多的重要的设施啊，如果因应空袭以后，可能会造成很大的一些状况，所以这些针对这些港区的这些设施的保护，还有这些交通设施的一个保护的这项的这个措施啊，我们都需要有事前的准备。
Almost 2,000 people participated in the drills, along with hundreds of fire trucks, helicopters, and drones. The training is focused on rescue efforts, mass evacuation of citizens, and backup plans in case roads and ports are destroyed. Taiwan regularly conducts these civil defense drills, and there have been more of them across the country in recent weeks. With China's rising aggression, these drills have become bigger and better resourced. It's also taking lessons from the war in Ukraine, which has mobilized citizens to defend its territory. Many Taiwanese see similarities with the Eastern European country under attack from an aggressive neighbor.
我们针对这个部分呢，我们也做相关的一个计划规划，包括各项的战情所需要的这些物资设备，还有战情所需要的这些救灾的动员、机具、能量，我们做一个大型的一个盘整。
Getting civilians to work alongside the city's personnel is now a key component in the country's defense strategy. Underscoring the importance of the simulation, New Taipei City Mayor Xiaoliuqiu oversaw the event.
我们不断地提升自我的战力，希望我们有一天真的碰到状况以后，我们有自卫，我们有抢救的能力，作为在后勤的资源上，能够 来让国家更安全，让我们因为不断的演练，国家安全、安心跟安定。
With tensions growing across the Taiwan Strait, these drills are considered vital, as the government calls on all citizens to do what they can to protect themselves and the country. Ricky and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
So, G20 finance ministers are gathering on the Indonesian island of Bali to discuss the world economy, which is reeling from the dual shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's war in Ukraine. Now, much of this year's G20 has focused on the fallout from Putin's war and diplomatic tensions between Russia and the West. Last week, Russia's foreign minister walked out of a G20 meeting after the Western leaders condemned Moscow for what they called war crimes. Countries in Asia are also feeling the effects of the conflict. Indonesia's finance minister issued a stark warning about the challenges facing the world economy.
We are all facing a very difficult situation to manage as a finance ministers as well as central bank governor. We are witnessing an alarming increase in risk to food security as the impact of the war in Ukraine and sanctions as well as export restriction, which are exacerbating the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. This all has driven food prices to record level.
Well, China is among those feeling the pinch, and China's economy grew at a rate of just 0.4% in the second quarter of this year. That's compared to the same period last year. And that is the slowest pace of expansion since the pandemic began in 2020, and far lower than analysts had predicted. The country's stringent COVID-0 policy and a property crisis dented productivity in the world's second largest economy. The financial capital, Shanghai, also took a hit in the second quarter, with its economy contracting 13.7% from a year earlier. It's seen as the fallout from 2 months of lockdown. Now, more than 200 million people are still under some form of lockdown in China, and economists predict that the country will now miss its growth targets for the year. Well, ongoing tensions between the US and China have seen both countries renew their efforts to shore up ties in Southeast Asia in the past few weeks. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi recently wrapped up a 10-day trip to the region. He was visiting Myanmar, Thailand, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia. China said the tour was to boost cooperation under its Belt and Road Initiative. That's a $1 trillion development strategy that has funded infrastructure around the world. Now, shortly after Wang's visit, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also went to Thailand, where the two countries agreed to deepen their already strong relations. Well, Taiwan is also vying for influence in Southeast Asia. It is all part of President Tsai Ing-wen's signature new Southbound Policy. It aims to boost trade and links with 18 countries, and it's also bringing more foreign students to Taiwan's universities. Louise Watts has this report.
Trying to find a new way to treat skin cancer. Trained pharmacist and PhD student Mohammed Yaqub Khan came from India 3 years ago after Taiwan ramped up its outreach to countries in the Indo-Pacific. He considered studying elsewhere, including China, but chose Taiwan.
We have the freedom here. We have the freedom to talk to the professor. We have the freedom for having the debate with the professor. We have the freedom for doing the work in the teamwork. So there is no kind of, you can say, pressure from any kind, from anyone.
Khan is one of thousands of Indian students who have come to Taiwan following a soft power and trade push. It's called the new Southbound Policy, launched by President Tsai Ing-wen in 2016, soon after she came to power. It's about making Taiwan less dependent on China for trade by increasing trade and deepening relations with other countries. Taiwan is targeting 18 countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia, and as far away as Australia and New Zealand. Its exports to these countries recently hit a record high.
I think the Taiwanese government has done a really good job because, last year Taiwan export to the 18 new Southbound Policy country total more than 22.5 billion US dollar. And this growth also was higher than that of Taiwan export to China, Japan, and the US.
Since the policy was enacted, students from India have quadrupled to more than 3,000, according to data from India's de facto embassy in Taipei. And people are coming for work too.
So the good thing in Taiwan is, Taiwan is a world leader in semiconductor industry. And my background was electronics engineer. So in India, we do not have electronics engineering industry. And so Taiwan controls 70% of the world semiconductor manufacturing. So if I want to get a good job or get skilled, what did I study? I definitely need to come Taiwan.
Taiwan's profile in India and in the region has grown as representative offices promote the country as a place to do business with. Khan's lab in northern Taiwan is collaborating with 2 Indian universities. And he feels deepening cultural as well as educational and economic links will benefit both countries.
If I get the opportunity to stay in the Taiwan, I will surely grab that. And if I don't, I will look for the platform that can join the two technology, the Taiwan and India. Just like I can work in the university or some industrial group. And from there we can transfer the technology between the India and the Taiwan, so that it will open the door for the new generation.
As Taiwan explores new avenues for trade, trying to boost its international reach, students like Khan are looking beyond that, hoping to create solid, lasting ties for the future. Klein Wong and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Well, there's plenty more still coming up. We'll be visiting a very special art project right here in Taiwan. It is a stop on a world tour. We'll find out how it's helping children living in conflict zones. Stay with us.
So this is a Yinwei Da Hong Tiao, red coral snapper. Good job. Good job.
If you are in Green Island, you have to come diving here. It is amazing. We're going to go see the oldest coral in the world, over 1,400 years old.
According to CNN, of a survey of done of 40 of the foods that you need to eat in Taiwan, roe fine or braised pork rice is at the very top. This is the number one thing. $15 US, $16 US, $18 US.
Wait, what? Huh? Wait, did we get the wrong card?
No, don't waste your money. Just go and eat what local people do.
Jason's Table Shocked and Surprised is now available on TaiwanPlus.
Hello again, let me get you some international news. Sri Lanka's parliament has accepted the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, saying that the process of selecting his replacement will start on Saturday. Protesters had been celebrating his apparent resignation, which came via email on Thursday night. It was sent a few hours after Rajapaksa fled the country. Mass protests over Sri Lanka's worst economic crisis in decades came to a head earlier this week, when demonstrators occupied government buildings in the capital, including the presidential palace. They say they are still unhappy with the acting president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, who is also the prime minister.
So I think at this point in time, there are early celebrations at Galle, obviously with the knowledge that Gotabaya will soon be going home. But at the same time, there is also some sense of frustration and anxiety in knowing that he's being replaced with someone who is equally problematic.
4 Hong Kongers who have been on the run for more than a year have been arrested as they were about to flee to Taiwan. The men aged 16 to 23 face charges over their roles in the 2019 pro-democracy protests. They include Zhang Chi-kin. He's the first protester to be shot by police with live ammunition during the protest. He was later charged with rioting but went missing after his court appearance 20 months ago. Now, the 4 were intercepted at a bus terminal near a ferry pier. Local media say they were en route to a speedboat bound for Taiwan. Well, Hong Kong's latest bid to stop the spread of COVID is raising alarm bells among some of the residents there. The government is introducing an electronic system modeled after China's. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick has the story.
Hong Kong's health app is introducing a new feature. Users will be coded red or yellow, depending on their COVID status, and this will determine where in the city they can go. There are fears that the system, which has been in place in mainland China for 2 years, will be used to monitor and control people's movements. But the city's new leader says these worries are unwarranted.
將任何措施用喺非抗疫嘅範圍咧，係唔會發生。
In China, a green health code is required to go virtually anywhere. Restaurants, cinemas, trains, even toilets. A recent protest over banking issues was smaller than expected because many people who planned to attend found their health codes turned red to prevent them from going. Such abuse of the system is what people in Hong Kong are afraid of. This virologist says it has little real benefits to public health. He asked that his identity be concealed.
I don't think this will have any use in Hong Kong. It won't serve its purpose. It's redundant with things that we've already used in an attempt to gain that purpose. And it's incredibly invasive. The way things are heading, it could get a lot worse and essentially get to the point where the natural response to any sort of interaction with CHP is to get them away from you via any sort of lies and or deception, because otherwise you're going to run into a Kafkaesque show with questionable benefit both individual and population.
Earlier in the pandemic, Hong Kong was a poster child for effective management, but the virologist says that authorities have squandered public goodwill by continuing to tighten controls on residents' lives, even as the rest of the world is adapting and opening up.
Our COVID-19 response has been, to a great extent, utterly detached from reality since probably somewhere between August and September of last year. and it's just become increasingly so. It is run primarily under people that do not have any idea about the underlying sickness or the underlying virology or epidemiology, and its goal is primarily to suck up and please people up in the mainland rather than actually save any lives over here.
Other measures coming into force include people wearing electronic wristbands if they test positive for COVID. The government says this is necessary to move towards a reopening of the financial hub's borders. But after 3 years of isolation and strict COVID controls, Hong Kongers are skeptical that their efforts will be rewarded. Ryan Ho-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
Now, an art project designed to give hope to children living in war-torn countries is in Taiwan. It's the latest stop in a world tour. Yujing Huang now reports on how the project is opening the creative minds of local children.
These were made by children who live in war zones. Most of these 210 pieces were painted by children from Ukraine. This exhibit is now traveling the world to bring attention to the plight of those most vulnerable in times of conflict. Taiwan is the first stop in Asia. Through painting, children caught in war zones get a chance to process how they feel.
我们说为什么讲艺术就是疗愈，也就是说，他纵使没有说什么，没有解说，他本身对他就是一种有功效了。他可能把他的情绪，他用颜色、用泼洒，他可能都已经有发泄。他能够愿意说很多啊，说得很清，那是非常好的。可是尤其对儿童，尤其对很创伤的，他不见得会这样。
Art therapists say the children's work is like a secret garden of their minds, exposing what they care for most. This applies to children everywhere. The children here do not have first-hand experience of war, but in this art class, they learn to empathize with those who are in such a desperate situation. 50 pieces in this exhibit are made by Taiwanese children. The pupils were told to do research on Ukraine, then draw what resonates.
My painting is a man. He is really scared about his future because he's lost all his loved ones, but he also is scared of the present because he's hearing noises of the war, he's hearing bombs dropping down. He's scared of what is going to happen to him. So he puts his two hands on his laps and he's thinking, what do I have left in my life? And he's really hopeless.
And many parents and with their children have to escape with no roofs over their heads and no stable source of income. So my painting is about family members having to split up and unwillingly go on their own ways.
Some children try to understand war through their own experiences.
When I got COVID, I realized the importance of freedom and how hopeless the children are. I wish the war ends soon.
The exhibition has been held in several countries, with children at each stop able to join this conversation about war and peace. This art relay is also an opportunity for adults to learn how the next generation comprehends war. Kamashi and Yujing Huang for TaiwanPlus.
That's really touching and some important messages there. Now it's summer in full swing. Tourists have been flocking to the sunny island of Xiaoliuqiu just off Taiwan's south coast. Canoeing and paddleboarding are some of the most popular activities, but the sports involve clunky equipment, and that's not making life easy for one of the island's more vulnerable inhabitants. James Chater has this report.
They're Xiaoliuqiu's most famous inhabitants, and tens of thousands of tourists come to the island off Taiwan's southern coast every year to catch a glimpse of them. But now, researchers say canoes and paddleboards left on Xiaoliuqiu's beaches are obstructing sea turtles' nesting routes.
上海侦探会尝试着去找一些适当的沙滩去做爬行，然后去做寻找，然后掘洞的一些动作。那如果晚上刚好有这些大家忘记收起来的东西，那可能会比如说海龟在爬的时候可能会撞到或者是卡住。
Sea turtles' mating season runs from May to September, the exact time summer peak season sees a surge in tourists to the holiday island. Researchers say any equipment left on beaches can impede both the turtles getting to the nesting zones, as well as baby turtles trying to get back to the water.
有跟这些业者去宣导，请他们注重生态保育。这些独木舟、SUP 等等的业者，他将在 晚上非营业的时间，我们管理处要求他们，请他们吸回自己的店家，或者是远离利息龟会下卵的沙滩地。
Balancing conservation with the tourism on which Xiaoliuqiu relies has proved difficult in the past. A report published this year found coral in the island's diving zones had largely been destroyed. But conservationists hope businesses will now heed their warning and allow turtles a smoother slide along the island's beaches. Chris Marr and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Now here's another story of another little animal in peril in a very different way. In a small province in central Thailand, a group of rescuers has managed to save an elephant calf and its mother from a pit. The dramatic events unfolded when the one-year-old calf fell into the hole and its mother stood by in distress. Rescuers gave the elephant an anesthetic, which caused her to partially fall into the pit. Then they used a crane to lift her out, and she fainted from the stress. Understandable. Vets and volunteers then performed CPR, and she was able to return to the wild with her baby, who climbed out of the hole. Look at that little guy. Well, that's it for this show. Thank you from myself and the whole TaiwanPlus news team. Thank you for watching. Finally, we'll be leaving you with some images of the first koala raised by hand by Taipei zookeepers. This little koala you see there, named Bess, is turning 14 months old and is in great health. The baby's mom died of leukemia last November, and that was when Bess was just 4 months old. Remember, for more stories from Taiwan and around the world, do download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.